Welcome to Mindfully Integrative Podcast with your host, Dr. Damaris G. Mindfully Integrative is a podcast discussing ways toward mindfully incorporating integrative health into our lives. This podcast will have informative resources, fun topics, interviews, and discussions relatable for today with a true mindful perspective in a mind-body, holistic life approach.
Hi, how are you? Let's talk about the gut microbiome and metabolic health in our lesson 2 and the connection between it. How is that working? So we're talking about GLP-1 production, whether it's with medication or the body itself. And what is that doing? It becomes a critical role in regulating our metabolic health. It includes secretions and function of glucagon-like peptides, a hormone essential for blood sugar control and appetite regulation and insulin sensitivity. Now, what does that exactly mean? And how do you have a healthy microbiome? And how does that enhance the GLP-1 production? In fermentation of dietary fiber, it's beneficial in the gut biome. And main ones that you'll hear about are bifidobacteria and Akkermansia. So these are fermented prebiotics, and you can get this in prebiotic foods like vegetables, legumes, whole grains. And those produce short-chain fatty acids, which then will produce butyrate, acetate, and propionate. And that, in turn, will help break down different foods and gives you the quality amount of good and bad fiber and body's flora within. And that short-chain fatty acids that you're getting in your food will in turn stimulate the L cells within the intestine. So I was talking about if you have a good flora there, your GLP-1 production, which produces L cells, will have uptake. So if you don't have the medication, you don't need it, and you're eating the right foods and the right amount of prebiotics and whole foods, you're going to have more uptick and promote more of that, which then will secrete insulin within the body, will slow the gastric emptying on which you'd want, which then will control your blood sugar and reduce your hunger. Now, we'll talk again more about muscle intake here, but that's just the gist. So think then you've got your gut and your microbiome and the lining, the barrier from the mouth all the way down to the rear end. That lining, we want to make sure its integrity is intact. So they call that intestinal permeability, and making sure that it's not impermeable, not broken, and it's actually being used, and the junctions are the things that are supposed to get through are getting in, and not everything. Not the floodgates aren't open. You're just getting what needs to get in. Those lock and keys are working, and the right nutrients are getting in. But once those things in the permeability or the integrity of that, where inflammation is causing that wall to open, it's open. And then the floodgates open, and then anything can get in. And that's when you have disease and problems. So it controls that. So think of it like, when that is intact, you have a balanced microbiome, you're preventing leaky gut, you're reducing inflammation, and you have proper GLP-1 secretion. When you do have a disconnect or a leaky gut or a dysbiosis, you're going to have less GLP-1 production. So that is also when sometimes you'll hear someone say, I've had to uptick my medication. Why do I have to uptick my medication? Well, because you may have a gut health issue. So until you address that, no medication will work. There will be a plateau. So then you have to trick your metabolic system by eating more whole foods, work on cleaning out the inflammation and possibly dysbiosis or integrity of the gut health. When you work on that and fix the chronic inflammation or metabolic dysfunction and reduce the inflammation, you will have more of an uptick of GLP-1. Your medications, if needed, will be there, and it'll improve your insulin sensitivity. So that's why it comes down to, really understanding and optimizing your body. Now, how does the impact of probiotics on GLP-1s? Now, this is because when the studies have shown that lactobacillus and bifidobacterium increases GLP-1 secretion. Yes, it leads to improving glucose metabolism. Also, for weight regulation. There's acromansia. That's a big one now. And that has helped to reduce and help with weight regulation. Now, how does this dysbiosis disrupt the GLP-1? I briefly had stated that in your body, when you have that disruption or irregular good and bad microbiotic microflora within the body, it's because of poor diet. You're just eating processed foods, nothing whole, no water, and it's just sugar and junk. You're having antibiotic overuse and chronic stress and lack of sleep. When you put all those things together, that'll be a factor, right? So think about that as important. So when you reduce short chain fatty acid production, which means that you're not eating the whole foods, you decrease your GLP-1 production. So naturally, your body is not able to do that. There are some individuals that genetically they have low GLP-1, and in turn they have to really be big on what they put into their body because they're going to go and be more obese than other individuals. And that means they're with obesity, but they will have that issue of not being able to control their insulin. So there will be other health issues that may come up. It's not as common, but most individuals, due to the food intake and things that are in our bodies, we will have problems. So that's why the gut permeability, leaky gut is, it's still important to understand, and that the irregularity of flora will cause inflammatory response and go into the bloodstream. The inflammation can cause insulin resistance, obesity, and metabolic problems. Now, when you have lower Akkermansia or by facto bacteria levels, which is a probiotics, those are key players in helping with the gut and also helping with regulation of your weight control. Some individuals are just prone to not having as much of it, so they need it into their diet. Other individuals, you'll see that when they have less GLP-1 or their other hormones start to get dysregulated, whether it's insulin, their leptin, their ghrelin, and they're going to start increase their cravings and more weight gain. In addition, we haven't even talked about exercise in this equation, but the amount of muscle that's needed to kind of bring up the uptick and getting rid of or regulating the insulin and the glucose within the body. So elevated from firmicutes or bacterocytes, I'm saying it a little off, but it's bacterocytes or firmicutes. These are probiotics that are commonly seen in patients. They're very high in patients that are with obesity. And that means their ratio is higher because they're absorbing their increased volume of calories, processed food, they're storing so much more fat, and they're more insulin resistant. So I will see an uptick in this if I did a stool testing, and I would see that in the person's, and they're not showing enough fatty acids. And this can be regulated and not only with the medications, but a lot of with nutrition and what they put into their body, and it can be improved. But, until you understand how important gut health is, I can't sit there and tell you that, these medications are the only source, or if you do it naturally, you're just going to magically get it situated. No, you have to do a little bit of both. Now, how do you increase your gut bacteria so that your uptick is higher in the GLP-1 range, so your hormones are better, so that you can have better insulin regulation, optimization? You increase this by having prebiotic fiber, eating things like garlic, eating things like leeks, asparagus, bananas, flaxseed, oats, legumes. These things that are beneficial for stimulating not only GLP-1, but just the body's natural movement. Consume fermented foods as long as it's not causing you a histamine response. Probiotic foods, eat yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha, as long as you're not high inflammatory allergy or throat issues. You'll know if you're on a low FODMAP diet, you might need to have that reduced. Reduce foods and processed sugars. Supplements for probiotics are lactobacillus, bacterium, gut health and metabolic function. Manage your sleep and stress, between like 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Try to get into that quality sleep. And exercise is so paramount. I mean, this is in a range of things that I will talk about, but in general, when you are more insulin resistant because you're moving more, you're able to do and have more circulation, not to mention strength training, and at least some sort of muscle work to be done. So the main things there that I really want you to understand is that our body can be regulated when it's impacted by the gut flora. And when you work on your integrity of the gut lining by eating the right foods and giving it the right nutrients. Thank you for listening to the Mindfully Integrative Show with Dr. Damaris Maria Grossman, family nurse practitioner. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not to substitute for professional medical advice, diagnose, or treat. Always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your healthcare routine. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you enjoyed our show, please support us by leaving a mindful review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite streaming platform. Interested in being a guest or more information? Email us at info@mindfullyintegrative.com. For resources mentioned in the show, visit our website at www.mindfullyintegrative.com. You can also connect mindfully with Dr. Damaris on her social media links found on the site. May your strength and peace guide you to find a mindful way every day. Namaste.